When Pope Gregory XIII constructed the calendar, circa 1533, he accounted for October. But folks, he did not account for Cocktober. Because although October's over, if Saturday taught us anything, it's that Cocktober ain't over. And I wanted to show y'all this. This was a clip that was filmed on the show when South Carolina, following South Carolina's loss to Alabama. Let's play the clip. South Carolina, talking to your fan base one by one, because I got empathy for you guys. I feel for y'all. And growing up a Tennessee fan, I've been in this spot before. So you can do one of two things. You can look at your record and say, gosh darn it, we're 3-3, and you can complain and throw a fit and pout. Or you can look at the fact that you outgained Alabama in first downs, passing yards, rushing yards, and total yards on the road. You can understand that the only reason you lost to LSU was because your quarterback, Lenor Sellers, got injured and a really questionable call. Remember, I'm going to go back to this. South Carolina didn't punt the entire first half when they played LSU. Robbie Ashford comes in and he produces a 3 QBR and they have one touchdown in the entire second half after dropping 24 in like 1.5 quarters. So that being said, outgaining Alabama in every single facet, should have probably beat LSU, beat Kentucky 31-6. This is not a sustainable way of losing. So that proved to be true. And South Carolina was way better than what their record said coming into this game. There's no doubt about it. Because South Carolina, they are one of the biggest, most physical teams in the SEC. I mean, Rocket Sanders, Joshua Simon, those guys are tanks. Lenor Sellers, I mean, the amount of times that Texas A&M had a guy, the first play of the game, where I was like, oh man, it's going to be one of those games, where Texas A&M was able to blitz him completely unread by South Carolina. Didn't see it coming. And Lenor Sellers, despite having a guy in his face in like 0.5 seconds, gets out of it somehow. Because he's got, I talked about this. There are quarterbacks that have wiggle speed, and there are quarterbacks that have just insane elusiveness, straight line speed. Lamar Jackson's an example of wiggle speed, and Jalen Milroe is an example of just downright elusiveness. Lenor Sellers is one of the most elusive, straightaway running quarterbacks in college football. That guy is freaking fast, and he's big. At 6'2", 240 pounds, he's a tough guy to bring down. I mean, the amount of, not just him, but the amount of broken tackles that South Carolina had in that game was nuts. It was crazy. They couldn't tackle Lenor Sellers in the backfield. Josh Simon, too. Rocket Sanders, as I talked about. This South Carolina team, and they've been in that mid-tier, honestly, because they haven't had this. Remember, Spencer Rattler was getting sacked over and over and over and over again in his time at South Carolina. That's not an issue. South Carolina 0 sacks given this game. And here's an identity stat for you to say South Carolina destroyed Texas A&M in the trenches. I'm going to put this bluntly. Destroyed Texas A&M in the trenches. South Carolina, 6.7 yards per carry as a team. What did they give up? 3.5. This defensive line was all over Texas A&M. And we know how good this A&M run game is. We saw what they did against LSU. But that right there tells you everything you need to know. This Carolina O-line, man, freaking dominated. They brought their A game, and they didn't look back, flat out. This South Carolina team, they're big, they're physical. Beamer's building something in Columbia with this redshirt freshman quarterback in Lenor Sellers. They're building something. And let me say this as well in terms of Texas A&M, to where, yes, I did bet on South Carolina, to be honest with you. And A&M, you got a redshirt freshman going on the road, night game on ABC, hostile atmosphere. You're getting a team who's better than their record says. They're hungry. They're determined, like every team is, but this team especially. It's possible A&M just fell in a trap. This is a classic trap game. And it is possible that A&M got a little bit overhyped. I'm saying this isn't a definitive statement, but it's a possibility that A&M got a little bit overhyped after that LSU win. Because LSU prepared for Connor Wegman. It's clear they weren't prepared for Marcel Reed. Because when Marcel Reed showed up in that LSU game, that entire game changed. And LSU wasn't ready for it. because Texas A&M ran the ball down their throats. South Carolina is probably 2 times more physical than LSU is. They are great in the trenches. And South Carolina had a week to prepare for it, man. And they did. If you give LSU a week to prepare for Marcel Reed, that could be a different outcome. We can play the what ifs all we want. I will say that. But it could be a different outcome. And South Carolina had a chance to prepare. A&M, man, it's a tough loss for sure. I'm not denying that. But this team can still go to Atlanta. All that you got to do is beat Texas and beat Auburn. And that's a possibility. And then boom, they're in there. They're in Atlanta. South Carolina as well. They've eclipsed the hard part of their schedule. They're going to be favored in every game except the last one against Clemson. South Carolina's played the third strength of schedule, hardest strength of schedule in college football so far. That being said, South Carolina to make the CFP at plus 15,000 is worth a sprinkle on DraftKings. Do I think that's going to happen? No. But we've seen the committee give these lower tier record SEC teams the benefit of the doubt. And South Carolina, with a big win against A&M, if they beat Clemson as well on the road, along with having no bad losses, by the way. They've lost to LSU, in which their quarterback got hurt in the first half. They lost to Alabama because they didn't get the 2-point conversion, right? And they got crushed by Ole Miss, I'll say that. But no bad losses for them. They check some boxes. That could be worth a sprinkle. But anyway, South Carolina, 44, Texas A&M, 20. Why did South Carolina win? Brute physical strength. Flat out the reason.